So the first thing I'd like to bring up was the idea that in the video, there was a discussion about exactly should somebody say anything if they were HIV positive, and the person in the video was actually saying, well, it's kind of, a personal choice, because, no one says what they're supposed to say in those situations, because sometimes just things happen. Now, to be responsible, I say across the board, whether you have AIDS, whether you have herpes, if you have anything that's diagnosable that somebody else can say, hey, you have that, then I think it's your social responsibility to let somebody know before they go down on you. Don't talk about the idea of whether you're going to get into intercourse or not. If they go down on you, then they can still get the disease. If you're about to get intimate, then you have something at that stage of the game. It's your personal responsibility as far as what we're trying to put forward here. So I'd just like to say that out front. But it's interesting that we were talking about the idea of the kids who won't listen, and B, the elders that won't talk to them. It's a hell of a combination. if the elders who keep fighting that things don't get said in the schools, because they're the ones who are opposing it. They're not just saying, hey, thank you. These are the people who came out for Prop 8. These, while they vote, they pulled the lever for Obama, and then they pulled the lever for Prop 8. They didn't see any contradiction there. Now, as soon as you get to the point where people are deciding that A, the system has no right to educate your child, but yet they refuse to talk to their child about sex, heterosexual, homosexual. They won't talk about anything that's relevant to their kids, but then they don't want the school to do it because that's their own responsibility. So could you speak for a second to the idea of, if you had your druthers, what would you want, what do you think would be the right thing to say that could get people, young people listening? Let's just start there.
Well, I've always seen the best impact for the young population to learning is when they actually see it happening to one of their own. And they might not have never known me or say another friend of mine who is infected, who doesn't mind disclosing their status publicly. When they see it happen in their own generation, that's kind of almost like a wake-up call. That's kind of the first step. And it's not always all the way there. Sometimes, because sometimes a habit is a habit for some of these young people. And sometimes what feels good to them is hard to say no. I'm a witness. I used to be a hornball when I was in school, and I swear if I really wasn't so afraid of sex, I probably would have endangered a lot of people. And the thing is, they're not understanding that I was told from age 7 to not tell anybody. So I was trained to not say a word. And having that training and not saying a word, understanding that I didn't know anything about condoms until just about 2 years ago.
Wait, can I actually just jump in there real quick? Because that, I'm 44 years old. Now, when I was coming of age in the club scene in 1979, 1980, when I was 16 years old, there was no conversation about condoms and so on and so forth. Now, I hear a lot of young people these days say, there's no talk about education about condoms. I mean, right down to your even your ridiculous sitcom. There's always this moral thing about AIDS. There's a lot of there's PSAs about AIDS now. There's a lot of people talking about AIDS. I don't know how someone actually gets to, there's a lot of talk about condoms. There's a lot of people passing out condoms. Even NYC is doing their NYC condom thing. And it's I'm just shocked that young people could grow up in a world that they don't even hear about any of the tons of information. There's all these programs, but yet no one knows, but yet there's all these programs. GMHC jumps in, how many, like, I mean, let's just discuss a second, because I just wanted to jump in there real quick. The idea of how much money, because I know we've talked about this a lot off camera, how much money is really going into all these organizations in outreach? And why are we still ending up with generations of young kids growing up not knowing about these issues?
Well, one thing I want to say, when I mentioned about free balls, that's GMAC's way of getting to, say, the ball community to educate them about HIV and AIDS. But when you go to these balls, they have condoms all on the tables with pamphlets. And it's like these kids are just taking the condoms, putting them in their pocket. They may not use them, or like I said, they may look at what flavor they're getting. You know, I don't know, but it's like that's not enough. You know, it's like, and then also...
Then let me jump in there. What should happen? Because I mean, this...
Well, I just wanted to answer your question.
Okay, thank you.
The question was about how much money they're spending. Now, from 1993 to about 2006, they've spent $1 million on free balls. Venue costs, trophies, food,
sound,
maybe
lights.
salaries, sound, lights. But they spend $1 million. They spend over $1 million on these free balls, but you know, yet you have people that are full-blown AIDS that don't have housing, and they can't afford the extra medication they need, and they can't afford, you know, I'm like, why don't you just like help people? You know, when they come to you for help, they have AIDS, they're sick, they're desperate. You know, but you want to tell them we're giving a free ball in May, and you come to Roseanne Ballroom. Like I said, go walk grand prize. Grand prize is $1,000, and if you win over 10 people, you can buy your medication.
Okay.
If not, just drop dead.
But why?
Can
So please.
I want to just say this. In the New York City public school system, when we first started HIV/AIDS education and all of the outreach and all of the types of things that we wanted to do for them. Up until the last 8 years, and I'm gonna say this, up until this last administration, and if anybody lets him back in, you're gonna do more damage than you've ever seen. He should never have been the czar of the Board of Education. That's what we had chancellors for, that's why we had boards, and that's why we had community-based boards that really did the impact that has now been diminished. If you look at the teenagers you're dealing with now, who were 16, 17 years old 8 years ago, they were 8 and 9-year-olds, okay? They did not get their education in the classroom because it did not become a priority. Priority was those 5 mandated lessons were not for them. You have to understand, not every teacher can teach this topic. The process of training teachers and then weeding out those who can't do it is even more paramount than just giving them all the curriculum and doing more damage in the long run. Because they will go out there, they will try educate. They will fumble, they don't want to answer the questions that the kids have, and therefore, no education has gone on. It's become a real challenge for you at the other end. On the other side, if you don't put your money where your mouth is, now we are a $1 billion operation. We received in the New York City public school system, rehear my lips, as long as I've been here 25 years, not one penny, not $1 of city funding for HIV education.
Wow.
It came from the state and the federal government. Not one penny of city dollars. All you people who pay taxes, and I do, you did not contribute to the education of children in the public school system.
Dolores, I have one more thing to add to that. We talked about PLCC and misappropriation of funds. They received $1.7 million budget for 2007 and spent over $400,000 of money they didn't have. And I won't even get into the scandals behind it, but you know, if somebody just would like to hear something, let's just say spending money on bailing people out of jail, you know, that wasn't scheduled, that was scheduled for HIV/AIDS education. So there's a lot of problems within a lot of these agencies. And the kids, it's unfortunate that this just came to me, but it's a reality. A lot of the kids feel ostracized. That's why they don't tell their status. Because status in like the gay community is mostly used if someone knows your status as a weapon to put you down, to read you, to make you feel less than a person. This is why you have many young kids that would dare not say, well, I'm HIV positive, or the older people, because you know something, it's used as a weapon. It's used as, oh, well, you got caught. You know, it's like romper room or the musical chairs. You know, when there's no more chairs for that person to sit in, you have to be ostracized. People are looking at disease as it's a joke, and as it's a reason to put somebody down and make them feel bad. Or, you know, well, this thing got to madness. You know, it's like I asked them, why are you so happy about somebody else's destruction? It's the same thing with cancer. This thing is getting chemo. Why do you live, most people, I hate to say this, in our society, maybe, you know, don't want to get religious, but most people seem to enjoy putting somebody else down, or to celebrate somebody else's problem, or like, you know, like your disease, you know, they just want to point a finger. I don't know what the emotions are, I don't know what the psychological ramifications that they're going through, but generally people just have this knack to look at you and want to find out what's wrong with you. You gotta have something wrong with a person.
And Kevin, you're right, and one of the things is it starts early. It starts in their youth, it starts when they're in kindergarten, first grade. You can see the growth of that. And it's that peer pressure, it's that if I put you down, I become better. It's the group that I will one day belong to that's the stronger of the species versus the weaker of the species. And we've got to learn to be kinder and gentler to each other. We're not doing that. And it's not a religious thing, it is a human thing. And we've got to understand, we're human beings. This is not a process that came before this child was even in the womb. This was a process that even was passed down to the parent of the child. And so what you do when you give back is exactly that negativity and that hurtfulness and that spitefulness. We had a situation where we were giving in the Board of Ed millions of dollars to consultants. Consultants who can come in and try to assess a program that when I was growing up, Please tell me, why did you need to give someone $1 million and yet no money to comprehensive health, physical education in the public school system?
I have another question. What about, okay, for example, I'm an assistant director to the film How Do I Look, where this has really got our community, say the ball community, talking about HIV and AIDS and things that are really important. But yet, you have children out there that, you know, we've had a lot of flack, a lot of animosity, a lot of jealousy. They don't want to hear what we're trying to say to them. And like you're saying, you know, I feel the same way. It's like when it comes to trying to protect education or just trying to teach people what's going on, you know, people just have this knack where they don't sit still. They don't relax. They don't, unless it's their child or, and even still, with it being their child, I've known parents that turn away from their children. Oh, well, they got the AIDS, you know, because they couldn't even accept that they were gay. You know, there's just so many crazy things going on. And all I want to see is people understand that you have people that have AIDS, you have diabetics, you have people with cancer, you have people dying from whatever, or sick from whatever. What does it take to make an impact that, you know something, we need to pay attention to what is really going on? What do we do to make an impact, to get people to get off their asses and stop allowing it to be someone else's problem? Oh, let them do it. Let, you know, push the buck on somebody else. It's always that way. I mean, with How Do I Look, I wrote letters to Senator David Patterson when he was senator, now governor. I got, oh, your project is very good. That's very nice. I give you a letter of support. But when it comes to financing, get that message that HIV/AIDS education that the film gives, there's nothing.
And it becomes an underground scenario. One of the things that we used to do at the Board of Ed was we had a materials review process. And any video that was out there, any video, every piece of material, before it entered the classroom, and how do I know, because I chaired it, before it entered the classroom, had to be reviewed by a panel of experts, and they came from CBOs, they came from city agencies, they came to us once a month. We sat down and we reviewed all of these materials. We would have reviewed your film. If we felt it was appropriate, we would have put it on the list that said, and at that time we had a chancellor who said whatever we wanted, and if we approved it, we thought it was appropriate, age appropriate, and culturally appropriate, and adaptable, we put it on that list, we sent it out to the schools, and that was the only thing that they could show. And that even came from the written word, from the textbooks. You know, remember, the multicultural education in the Board of Ed got torn apart because, you know, Jane had 2 mommies. Just one title. It wasn't even the book itself that got it. Library. The title of the book destroy the multicultural educational program in the Board of Ed. So you can imagine, we fought that by saying that even the videos we use. When you even look at the international community, they have no problems when you go to other countries and see all kinds of media advertisements on HIV/AIDS, condoms, everything. It's there. It's 24/7 on their TV stations. We hid it. We only saw it after 12 o'clock at night, when kids are supposed to be asleep. And half the adults weren't going to watch it anyway. So they weren't taking their own advice and putting it there. So we don't even see it enough to make it an impact on anything else that we do. So we know that repetition is always the key. If I repeat it, and show it to you, eventually you'll get it. Okay? And if I don't repeat it to you and show it to you, then eventually it'll disappear. One of my favorite shows, Clockwork Orange by Stanley Kubrick, the movie, where they tied your eyes open, okay? And they forced you to watch those violent videos until you became so repulsed by it that you stopped being violent. Well, somehow, somewhere, it's going to have to come to a match, okay? We're going to have to do something, as you said, where's the drasticness? Where does it level off? Is it when everybody is all the same? And then we don't have to worry about it.
Well, let me, actually, sorry, let me just jump in there real quick, just because you two have such a great dialogue. But there's one thing that's the idea of getting to education. Now, we've danced around the idea of, okay, well, once again, there's Board of Ed ideas, there's all these organizations that are sucking up grant money and funding money, and it's going to be interesting to see how that goes out with this whole scandal and with this whole economy.
Well, one thing I just want to say is that even with the grant money that these agencies get, I'm just so proud that she told me that there's hope yet in the education system. But with me dealing with the agencies and all the grant money that they have spent on unnecessary nonsense, and the ones that got caught for misappropriation of funds, I'm like, all this money, and who's watching now?
But there's the thing. When POCC got busted for misappropriation of funds, I mean, technically, from the conversations from the early days of How Do I Look, with me working on the project, the idea, I was always like, well, wait a minute. To me, there's misappropriation of funds all over the place.
But I got a good one for you, and this is what I kept forgetting right before I got ready to say it. They spend all this money, just like over $400,000 over the budget. Right? My question is, most of my friends, when they got sick, they went to the welfare. If they didn't get welfare, they got SSI. What do we need with the agencies? Good question. Anybody can answer that? If you get sick and you got to run and get your housing through HASA or all these other programs that the welfare sends you to, or SSI, Social Security sends you to, what do we need with these agencies? Why is any money going to them?
Well, from my first experience living in New York, which wasn't too long ago, it was about a year and a half ago, the first thing I ever heard about New York was Housing Works. I had started my advocacy work with Campaign to End AIDS and Housing Works. And moving, the first couple days of moving here, I was housed with one of the centers at Housing Works. I got my medical attention at one of the centers at Housing Works. I even, I had a place to stay, I had food, you know, they cooked, you know, breakfast and lunch, and they took care of us. And it's programs like that I wish that would continue being funded, but because of things that happen within organizations like PLCC, now the governor and the mayor both together are taking funds away from HIV/AIDS services that actually benefit us as clients.
And not only that, the New York AIDS Institute, which got the grants to divvy up amongst all these agencies. But you know something, and I'm glad that you said that. Housing Works, I never heard anything really negative about them. But what I'm saying is why my friends are dead in the grave, but prior to them dying, when they needed certain assistance, they went to the welfare and they went to Social Security. They were on SSI and Medicaid. You know, what to my understanding is, well, so why should GMHC, why should GMAD, why should all of them have these millions and millions of dollars when the bottom line is when you go to welfare, they're gonna find you some housing. They're gonna either give you Section 8, they're gonna give you whatever program that you need. Medicaid is gonna pay for your, you know, medications. So what are they standing there for spending all those other dollars, like example, on a free board? I mean, $1 million since 1993, that's just one agency. Imagine when you add up the other agencies doing the same exact thing. I even suggested to them, well, why don't GMAD, Gay Men of African Descent, Gay Men of Health Crisis, PLCC, give one major free ball a year together. And at that point, you teach everybody about HIV, you teach everybody about AIDS, you give everybody condoms and say, this is how you put them on, this is what you need to do. And if you have problems, whether it's mental issues or what have you, come here and we have a section here that will take care of it. We'll have therapists, we'll have our psychiatrists, you know, we'll hire these people instead of just giving money for the children to vote and dust their clothes.
Now, here's the thing. I'm a client of the HEAT program in Brooklyn. That's Health Education Alternatives for Teens. And we are infamous for having safer sex parties always at the lab.
Can I ask you one thing?
Convenient
One thing I
location.
need to ask you. When did heat start?
I have no idea.
Because I'm getting ready to tell you
I
that
just
I
met
just
them
dealt
last
with
year.
heat. I saw an email that I received about a free ball, yet another agency. I'm like, well, where did they come from? You know what I mean? I'm not putting them down.
No,
I'm
I was
just
getting
saying.
there. I was
Okay.
getting there. Now, I just met them last year. I just started with them last year, and in my opinion, I think that they are using their funds in a directly positive way, because the fact that not only do they have these parties, and not only do they support the cultures that, you know, and what these different cultures practice, like the balls. That was the first Brooklyn Ball, and they pride themselves on it, but here's the difference. The difference was that at every heat event, there is always free HIV testing, and it is heavily announced at each event.
Okay, I'm gonna have to stop you.
Just more
For-
same thing.
Excuse me.
No.
The
But
thing
we
with
do
heat,
have
I'm not trying to put heat down. I did notice this year they were giving a free ball at the lab. I've been fighting free balls because I think we need something else other than free balls. And you're 22, you know, I'm 50, going on 51. But I mean, I've been seeing this all these years. It doesn't help the people who are sick. And then, and as far as I'm concerned, if it's an agency that's going to give a ball or get involved with the ball community, then they need to talk to the icons and the pioneers of the ball community to be educated about the balls. I've never heard of these people. I've been going to balls since 1977, 32 years. I have over 250 trophies. So I have established, you know, ball, when you look at me, I'm what a ball is, you know, and they never try to contact me or any of my associates that have that status in the ball community. It's like they just did what everybody else did, jump on the bandwagon of giving a ball. Now, I don't want to stay on that topic because, you know, this is an agency that you said you got involved with last year and you found them to be okay, this, that, and other. But when you look at the big picture, after us having balls with GMAC since 1993, my friends are dead.
I want to back that really quick, is that the fact that this was their very first ever ball, and they had to do some research. I'm sorry that they couldn't find, you know, your network of people that have that deep
But
experience.
that's not a good excuse because I am the
Then you
balls.
have to look first.
See, that's what I'm saying. I'm like the
We
only
don't-
living person that's a pioneer, well, a few of us, very few, but I'm like the pioneer of the ball scene. So if he did not take the initiative of trying to figure out, well, who is involved in the balls, where are the hierarchies of the balls, that would be me.
But let me just jump in there, because this is exactly the problem. Now, this forum is specifically on AIDS. Every forum that we've done, because you'll see the list of topics, every topic, it's always the same thing. Organizations come in, people get an idea, they believe that everything started right when they got there. And the idea is that no one looks at the history. So whether you're talking about the economic issue, whether you're talking about, you know, how is the AIDS health implemented, all these things all come back to there's not a connection between the people. Even when you talk to young out people, and like I happen to mention ACT UP. Now I'm not gay, but I mention ACT UP. They turn around and they're just like, oh, those people.
Oh, but I have to say one thing, Darryl. That word is called capitalization. There's a lot of capitalization where people take other people's ideas, themes, history, and everything and make it their own because the agencies do that because they got government money to do it. How is someone like me, a producer, that if I rent a venue and I gotta pull $5,000 out of this guy just to rent the venue, and my cost, what happens is it becomes economics to the actual ball producers. We don't give that respect, you know, like, well, hey, Kevin Omni's been here for 32 years, or David Ultima's been here for 35 years. Well, you know, let's go to them because they're the pioneers of this scene and see how we can implement, because of their importance, or their visibility, how we can implement some kind of structure program for HIV and AIDS. It's like they don't call nobody. I had the same problem with Harlem United. I fought them one year and made them cancel a ball because my ball was that Friday. They had the nerve to come with a free ball on Saturday, and I had to go through it in order to let them know I don't appreciate this, and so they canceled it, and that was a miracle too because they got all this free money. I'm spending money. I'm pulling out my pocket. You know.
I just want to give a little historical perspective on heat. Versus what, I don't know about the ball situation per se, but I will say this. Theo started over 12 years ago. Theo is called Teens Helping Each Other. Christine Rucker is the executive director at a SUNY downstate. As an outgrowth, Theo are young individuals, adolescents, who through improvisation and through role play would take a topic, any topic, teen dating, you name it, and they were trained on how to have interactions like you would see on TV, and then how to stay in character and have the audience respond. As a result of that, a few years later after that, we started hearing about heat. And I'm saying it from my end at the Board of Ed, because one of the big issues we did prior to 8 years ago was we attempted to identify all the CBOs that had an HIV/AIDS, any kind of initiative, to come in and, as I said, to supplement the educational component. When Theo said, this is our venue, this is the way we're going to do our thing, he came in. Jennifer Lewin, who is the woman that I've always gotten emails from HEAT. One of the things that I've noticed too, they do other things other than just the lab. They have a health symposium, an annual health symposium. They're about to have their next one coming up in a couple of months. When they go into a high school, the high school gives them the space, and they invite children from all over to come in, and they have topics, workshops, and actual
Well,
forums.
Dolores, I'm not debating what he
Oh, no,
would
no,
do
no,
as
no.
far as the good things.
Yeah.
Because, like, for example, there's an agency called The Door.
Yes.
And I live for The Door.
And they would get
I
rides
mean,
to all of them.
I went to The Door, and, you know, I was amazed how they took me on tour. They showed me where the kids have keyboards with computers, sound rooms and stuff, and also the medication for them are free for whatever they need. They don't have to be on Medicaid. See, that's what I'm talking about. I understand that. But like with heat, it just reminds me, and I'm not trying to put it down totally, because I know there's some good things.
Yeah.
That's why that's why they're there. But when it comes to say like the ball community, I get a little bit touchy because to me it's like, even if you want to capitalize off of the idea of giving them a free ball to get the ball children to listen to your other programs, it's not a problem. But you know something, still there's a certain amount of respect for a community. You just don't come up overnight and give a free ball and, you know, capitalize off our ideas and our foundations without at least consulting us. You know, I mean, I take it like I'm insulted by it. You know, I'm not saying that the agency is not a good But when it comes to us, it's like because the ballroom community has been so talented and artistic, everything you hear on the networks from Miss Dania Fias to RuPaul Bitch You Better Work, all came from the balls. All of that entertainment industry comes to the balls. When they did Tu Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, they came to Club Sound Factory on 21st Street, where I danced with, what's the ugly one's name? What's his name? Dark skin. He was the drag queen that was real. What is his name? Oh, come on. Sheila Noxzema or whatever. What is his real name?
In
Les,
the movie?
Yes.
Wesley Snipes.
Wesley Snipes. They came to our gay community. They came to the clubs to feel out, how a drag queen should be and this, that, and the other. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm saying that, it's a little bit like, of course, we have like so many people that have been out there that's dead, that people that are still hanging on by a thread. All of this becomes sensitive material. So when you have somebody coming out of nowhere, whether they were there 10 years, 12 years, or whatever, and they didn't consult us, the community, and just said, well, hell, we're gonna give a free ball because, well, maybe the positive side is we'll give a free ball so that when they get here, we'll tell them, here's a condom, you must use it this way, you must do this, you must do that, that's okay. But still, isn't it like, if you're coming to dinner, you should at least let us know? That's what I'm saying.
Well, on a slight defense, I just want to point that they did the ball just as they did their safer sex party. So they had, not so much it was like they were so much as wrapped around the idea of the balls because they had the categories. I've never seen that before. They had to do some type of research in order because they didn't know how to do a ball. I don't know how deep they did the research.
I know where the research came from.
But I do understand that because I worked that whole night, I had to do, I was the bouncer. If it was too much of a crowd up in the balcony while the people were trying to get tested, there's a confidentiality, we had the key. But the thing is, that was themed the same way every sex party we ever said, every safer sex party we have. So it really didn't have a ball feel. Honestly, it was another safer sex party that we did that just so happened to have competitions and trophies involved. And if we'd had the time to go deeper, I guarantee you they would have gone and you would have been reached out to about it. This is their first ball. So if they decide to do it, if they decide to take it on again next year, then I guarantee you they will have the time. But all I know is that when I came back from winter break, boom, somebody was giving me a flyer. I was like, this is not how he usually does their parties. We have months of advertising, marketing done. Somebody did this last minute. And I don't know, I honestly, I don't even think it was he.
I really would, I'm gonna tell you, it was probably, I know the people that did get involved with it, but those are people that's on that same level where they don't, it's all about not reaching out, just doing it and attaching themselves to something so that they can have an infamous name for a second. It becomes political. And I'm not trying to like down Heat because he's probably got a lot of good things going on. You seem enthusiastic about it. I don't want you to think that I'm ready to just go down there and say, who the hell are y'all, blah, blah. It's not that. It's just that all these years that go by and all these free balls that continue and all my friends are still dying and needing help in other areas, that's where my problem is. That's where my focus is. No more, no less.
Right. Let me just jump in real quick. What I want to do is I want to bring people into the conversation. So I could see that every time something was said, you were kind of chomping at the bit. I could see.
Very perceptive.
Good. I would love to bring you into the conversation. Tell people who you are, and then just, start your conversation.
My name is Kevin Wallace, and I'm a primary care doctor. And I want to ask Dolores, you had mentioned about pre-test counseling and how you want to maintain it. You're going to have some kind of activity in Albany to promote that or to continue it. And what I wanted to let you know was that my experience with it is that when I do the counseling and I do it correctly, I actually find people back out of it. And I want to know whether you had something you could suggest to me and how I could prevent that from happening.
Well, I'm not, the counseling is not my real background, but what I was talking about was the legislative packet that we are taking up to Albany for all of the constituents who are going to meet with their legislators. Those are some of the talking points. Those are some of the key talking points. Article 27F, which talks about confidentiality and HIV/AIDS testing. Period, point blank. We've always had the policy where you were given pre-counseling, you were given opportunity then to understand what was going to happen, the testing, how it functioned, and what was going to take place, and then you were given post-counseling. That's the most critical part, the post-counseling part, because once you get a diagnosis in your hand and you have no safety nets on either side of you, where do you send them and how do they survive? That's the key. What the Commissioner Frieden wanted to do was remove that process. There would be no pre-counseling. There would be no post-counseling. They would just be, we test everybody. And that's it. And leave you out there with no avenue for where you would go. As you said, when my friends were dying, where did they go? Did they go to welfare? Did they go to the SSI? We're saying you cannot do that. Okay? And so we have the backing of certain legislators and their The actual legislation is there documented for what we wanted our constituents to go up and say, we don't want this to happen. And we don't want it to happen permanently. We don't want it to shift tomorrow because it's somebody else's agenda, okay? We want it to be permanent, that it doesn't happen anywhere.
Well, I have to jump in here, it's just itching, I'm itching. There's one thing that bothered me, and one of my biggest gripes with POCC, as I was one of the people that I guess brought them down. They were doing testing, and they were saying, well, we're doing testing. These kids were getting paid to test. They were giving them $50. Now, there's two people I know for a fact that was going from state to state to every place that was testing because they were getting paid $50. They were making money off of this. So my point to the agency was, how good are your statistics if these people are going around knowing they're already positive and testing?
But I understand what you were saying in terms of the fact that people are backing out when you give them counseling. Is that what you're saying? Okay. That's another topic, and we can clearly bring you in some experts to help you deal with that. I mean, that's not really my forte, and I'll be the first to tell you that's not me. But I can tell you where we can find some people, especially within the NIAC community, that can really support you, some medical doctors that can probably tell you how to get them through. Because once they hit that wall, the fact that they even walked in there is one thing. You know, how do you keep them to keep going? Like I said, 20-minute rapid testing versus 6 months, big difference. Big difference.
And don't forget that no matter how many tests they do,
That's right.
how accurate is their
That's-
percentage and their results, because you have those kids, like I just said, that I know actually, oh honey, I'm going over, take him and test him. They knew they were positive for like 10 years, so they go get the money anyway. You know, so you can't count these people if you're really trying to get where the statistics are. You know, it's like, how do you know? You know, unless you're a mind reader or psychic.
But for the community that really are sincere in trying to get tested, and this is talking aside from those who, because I know there are some bug chasers and scammers and all that out there. I just found that out 2 years ago. So, but on the flip side of it, for those who are genuinely really interested in finding their status, sometimes that fear after walking in that door can break them so bad to where after they test, they don't want to come back because they just don't want to know. And it's a fear thing. But here's what I found when I was speaking to one of the coordinators at the Iris House. I have some associates there too. And what we talked about was it's really more important that pre-test. And what relationship do you build with a client or whoever it is that you're testing? What relationship do you build during the pre-test that will just influence them from their heart to come back?
Guess what? There's one thing within the gay community that has really, really bugged me. If I'm sick or I want to know if I'm sick, I don't want to go get tested by somebody I'm going to the balls with. A lot of these agencies, another problem, a big problem, when you talk about confidentiality, you don't hardly have any. When you're walking in these agencies like GMHC, GMAD, POCC, Harlem United, and the people that are testing you and the people that are counseling you are people you're voting down. To run with. Nobody wants to go and have their personal status or information or anything that's private. Because you know something? There's no such thing.
Give Willie Ninja as an example.
Yeah, okay, Willie Ninja, who was like an icon within the gay ball community, he was sick for a very long time. Came to me and I kept saying, well, you need to go get you some help. He refused to go to any of the agencies or any hospital that was affiliated with the kids because he didn't want to be seen by them. Because once being seen, the confidentiality is out the window. So you have a lot of people that are the Christopher Street children, the gay club children, the gay ball children that don't want to come in there and see the mother of the house of so-and-so doing your application. You know, so confidentiality is something that needs to be worked on.
And to just let you know, for the adolescents, when we were talking to them about testing, One of the things is that we would give them optional resources and say, you're living in Brooklyn, why don't you go get tested at the door in Manhattan? Okay, chances of you bumping into someone there would be less.
Or better yet, just if you want to get tested and you feel like you may be, then you're in New York, go to California. Because it's gotten that severe,
Well,
you know?
yeah, because the doors are open so wide, but, you know, adolescents with economic means, I mean, some of them have their Metro cards, can go anywhere, but most of them don't have that fly.
And that's why most of them don't get tested.
Tested, because they know. But you'll see kids who come from Long Island who will come into New York and get tested because they know their family lives out there and nobody's really going to see them. Okay? And so there's a way. If there's a way, you have to be creative to bring them back. Because the foundation of their survival is them coming back to get that follow-up.
Well, even like with BOCC, I wanted like them to understand anonymity is important.
Yes.
But it can't be anonymity or confidentiality when you have people that you're sitting next to at a mall or in a club that you see every week and every month. You don't want that person sitting there, you know, and you're sitting there getting tested to know your results, because 9 times out of 10, they're going to tell it to somebody. And it's unfortunate, but people have a problem keeping secrets.
Well, this was the biggest issue in the Board of Education, why we talked about confidentiality as the key, most primary way, help the students get through the classroom. Because you'll have a teacher who may get told by the parent of that child, well, the reason why he's so sick or ill and out all the time is because he or she is HIV positive. Teachers will go in that cafeteria and they will spread the word faster than the newspaper can get out.
I've seen them do it in the hospitals.
Okay.
I went with a friend and they're like, oh, you're HIV positive, hold on.
Yeah. And as a result of that, no teacher in the next grade would want that child. Where did they then start to be put was in special ed. self-contained classrooms where they have one teacher that they stay with for the majority of the time that they're there, or in that cadre. The other reason too, if a child is on medication, that was always the key. Because the medication would tell a teacher, if they were savvy enough, what was happening with that child. Again, we at the Board of Ed had no documentation. We could not keep any documentation on any child's records. As a matter of fact, they almost stopped giving out. They used to have these big metal kits. When we were growing up, they had this metal little container, and in that container was all your health records, everything you ever had. And that health record, when you went from 3-1 to 4-1, that health record went with you, and that teacher would go through that record to see whether her child had diabetes or had asthma or had whatever, and all that documentation. We had to stop, and that was one of the good things about Article 27F. The law prohibited any writing or documenting of a child's status, or any adult or teacher. We knew what stigmatism was doing. We knew what discrimination was doing. It was raising its ugly head of racism. It was putting these kids in jeopardy of getting beat up, being totally ostracized, even before they even had a chance. And parents know how you live if you live in a housing complex, let me just say this. There was no such thing as confidentiality.
At all.
Okay? But that's okay if all of the kids in that complex were in your school. Okay? You kind of could get away with it.
Well, how about when you go to the welfare center and you got your paperwork and then somebody's sitting there that you know?
Yeah.
You know, what do you do in a situation like that? Unfortunately, a friend of mine's no longer here, but he used to be one of the directors in charge of that. And he was on the phone the minute you left. Everybody knew in New York City that you were HIV positive. And you know something, because of that, and like I'm saying, going to an agency and seeing people that you party with and this, that, and the other, it's very difficult. It's like you almost have to leave New York and go to California and get tested. And if you get sick and you feel like you're gonna die, then go to California and die.
But let me also say this, we never gave everybody, when I did training, I would always tell them this, if you disclose, and I would say it just like this, stand in front of 300 people, if you disclose somebody's health status as it relates to HIV, you can be sued to the tune of $5,000, a year in jail, a misdemeanor, and a combination of the two. And we had a test. Social worker thought she was helping the child. When the child told her, in confidence, that his mother was HIV positive. The mother found out, because the social worker then went and did a whole thing. Well, I gotta go to the home, and I gotta da-da-da-da-da. Next thing you know, she was being sued.
And
And see, that's when you start to stop people, and especially if you publicize who's being sued for breaching someone's confidentiality, which we don't do. But we can do it other ways. But the key is that there is a law on the books where there's punitive damages for that. And people need to understand, I don't want to ostracize you, but you know what? I can go in front of Judge Judy and sue you for $1,500, but they're not straight will sue you if you disclose my HIV status
But you
for
know,
$5,000 and put you in jail.
Dolores, the only sad part about, don't get me wrong, I'm loving it.
I know.
But the sad part about it is when you sue these children, they ain't got nothing.
No, not the
You
children.
can't get
I'm
nothing.
talking about the adults who disclose.
The adults too.
Yeah, well,
You
some
know,
of them
they
need
on
to
welfare and
just
stuff,
put to
you're
the
suing them for $5,000. It's not gonna be satisfactory if they don't have
I
the
know,
money.
and that's why we have to do more education.
We have to just like try to do the best we can and come up with like things that just are logical and common sense. I think we get away from that.
Mhm.
I wanted to ask another question as well. I think, Kevin, you mentioned that there were a lot of psychological and psychiatric factors involved in people getting tested and becoming positive. And I just wanted to know, Dolores, do they actually target certain subgroups of people in schools when they're given education? Do they try to identify kids that are more at risk than others and speak to them specifically?
No. What we do in high schools, they might have clubs that would speak and target each other. Then, you know, groups of individual clubs would get together and they would have their own sense of self-worth and they would do things. But not in the elementary school and not in the middle school. Okay? We were more very conscious about that and we did not open that door, Pandora's box. What they would do is it's everyone has at risk. We teach universal precautions. We talk about risk factors for anyone, anywhere. I could go out tomorrow, be playing in the playground with your friend's daughter and not know their HIV status. What universal precaution would I use? I would tell teachers, carry rubber gloves, go to the flea market, buy whatever you have to do. Because when you walk out of this building, you are not going to know your neighbor's not going to tell you because they don't trust you. But yet their child's infected, and if you saw them and they got injured and you came rushing, and we get paper cuts on our hands all the time when you're in the classroom and other things, you can place yourself at risk. So treat everyone the same way. And
As
that's
if
the
they're-
goal.
As if they're positive.
It's the universal precaution method, and you have to give that message constantly, consistently, in order to stem the tide of just what you're saying, subgroups, subtopics, because it used to be stigmatized, the Haitians,
Yeah.
okay? They used to be stigmatized, that group, the gays, LGBT, the other ones, okay? Those in the you know, people go to steam rooms and they go to bathhouses for a variety of reasons. They ain't going to get their joints on. They go because they like going in those facilities. It's a health issue. And other people will stigmatize you. I saw you coming out of there.
Oh, yeah.
No. I'm telling you, we've seen it and we've heard it. And when we train teachers, we try to get them to understand that. Now I'm on the other end of the fence with NIAC. I'm just going to flip the script. I've been 25 years with the board, knowing that, writing the curriculum and working with teachers. But now I'm on the other side, I'm the advocate. I want the policy written. I'm more the person now that's looking at policy implementation and who's got the rights to make changes and who doesn't. I go out there and I empower people to make a good decision and go back to the powers that be and say to the chancellor or to the mayor and say, you are wrong. I want this for my kids. And we can put this in place. The school is an environment they spend 7 to 8 hours, and those after-school programs, we keep forgetting, kids don't always go. There are kids who are homeschooled that don't even get the educational component, okay? And they may be homeschooled for a variety of other reasons. We're not doing the effective educational training about this epidemic everywhere.
You know, something I was just came across my mind, but it's always been in me. You know, I had a person that worked for one of the agencies that was executive director that got fired or whatever. And, you know, they always said to me, well, I do this and I do that. You know, and then I told them, I said, well, I've done 10 fundraisers for HIV and AIDS. And through my church, every year I still do the hospital, Harlem Hospital. We, you know, from New Jersey, we give clothing and stuff like that. And it's like, you know, I asked most of these people that work at these places, including that executive director, if you weren't getting a salary, would you really give a shit? You know what I mean? I did it for free, so my work was volunteer work. You know, and then I just wonder how, you know, you're getting in front of these cameras and you're getting in front of these people and, oh, and I do this and we implement that and you know, but you know something, if you weren't getting a salary, you wouldn't give a shit.
And wouldn't go to an after-school program and donate their time for an
At
hour
all.
to do something or to go to another venue.
On top of that, they love to give each other awards.
Yes, absolutely.
And then the problem is like, that's one of the big, roadblocks for young people seeking care is because of the fact that they are starting to realize that it's, for a lot of healthcare providers, it is more about the check than it is about the patient. And
Is that what you feel?
Not me personally, my doctor is excellent. He's a pediatric doctor, which makes him really great. Like
In general?
In general, yes. To me, he's a great doctor. I wish I had him years ago. But not everybody's like that. Growing up, I didn't have Dr. Jeffrey Birnbaum from the HEAT program. Growing up, I had the University of Miami and Jackson Memorial Hospital taking care of me. And growing up under Jackson Memorial Hospital, it was more like protocols, procedures. Okay, we'll sit you in the waiting room, and I had to sit there for about 3 hours before I'm seen from the doctor. And I'm like, I don't have the patience for this. And I'm only 6 years old, and I don't have the patience for this. And it's like literally that type of thing, that type of stuff right there going on in other hospitals that I hear about. And I'm like, well, I don't know what to suggest. I don't know what to allow. I don't know what to, recommend because of the fact that me personally, I still don't know
It's the system.
too much about
It's the
New York
system.
enough to recommend, okay, this hospital is better, I want you to go to this one. I know Montefiore is okay, I heard some good things about them, but I don't know anything else to suggest. But the thing is, it's like it's turning these young people away, it's turning a lot of people away from healthcare because it's all about the check. And
I have just one thing that's really important. I didn't finish about Willie Ninja. He did not want to go because he didn't want to be, his business to be out on the street. So he suffered in silence. And when it was time for him to finally get help, it was too late. And he died.
Well, to answer maybe your question, it's really become, they call themselves not-for-profit, community-based organizations. But if you look at the board of directors, you will not find one person actually connected to the community. They are all corporate, and over the years they pushed out people like Kevin, myself, the true community leader. With the way they operate, they upset you, they piss you off, so you go away, so they have their way. That's probably the oldest trick in the book, and that's how these so-called community-based organizations, not-for-profits, they are basically an extension of corporations. There's nothing community about them anymore, because when you have these people on the board of directors that are so disconnected to the community, then you get the results. The way the bottom is how the way the top is how the bottom is run. So that's why we have all these problems. AIDS is now a big business. We have all these wonderful programs, we hear it. Why is the infection rate going up?
Continuously going up.
Continuously.
And New York having the highest, as well as New York being.
So as much that, when that HEAT situation, Kevin called me up, Wolfgang, did you hear about there's another AIDS organization? Or youth LGBT organization throwing another ball. I understand it's different circumstances, but you have to look at the big picture.
No. What I'm saying is these are young people who are going to care in hospitals. I'm not talking about CBOs. I was not even touching CBOs. I was talking about these are young people who are my dear friends that we do advocacy work with because we are tired of going to a hospital or clinic that has no ties to a CBO or CBO funds or funding that comes, that trickles down to the processes that CBOs get and ASOs get. We're talking about clinics and hospitals. If I would go to Kings County right now, I guarantee you I would never want to go in the door again.
That's where I was born.
But it's like I've been sick twice. I've had to go to the emergency room twice since I've been here. in 1.5 years that I've been here. And every time I go to downstate, because that's where he is connected to, they already know my doctor's information. Fine, whatever. But these hospitals are all almost the same minded. They say, okay, like literally, if I don't put AIDS on the card, the intake card, before I slide it under the window and the lady takes it, whatever, then I will be sitting there for 6 hours before I get seen. I have to make myself sound so severe.
You know, it's really sad because, you know, besides, I mean, I grew up in Kings County Hospital. All they always gave us was penicillin and Tylenol, and I went to party after that. But, you know, and it's something like New Jersey hospitals. I mean, everything is political. Like in New Jersey, when you have that situation, you're seen right away. I'm not trying to praise New Jersey because I live there, but the hospitals there, when they deal with HIV and AIDS, they're a lot more sensitive. I think what the bottom line is, just like the hospitals, the agencies, the executive directors that are insensitive, it's all about the training. It's all about the education. And